we've got Chromebooks, we've got phones, if that's something you allow, if they're using it for schoolwork. So Google Slides works across all of those, whereas Google Sites is awesome and it's a great way to build a portfolio. And you could take a lot of these techniques and put it into Google Sites, but students who don't have Chromebooks are not going to be able to do that. So you'd have to find a way around it. All right. So I did this for like a lab portfolio. And so all of our labs would go into the digital portfolio instead of like a traditional notebook or anything like that. So, you know, I had my students creating more digital data tables and graphs. They were able to include pictures and videos along with whatever we were doing that day, because we did a lot of hands-on stuff. I also found, okay, honey, sorry, my 3-year-old. I also found that when students type, they tend to write a little bit better and a little bit more than if they're writing with pencil. I found it easier because I could grade the portfolios from anywhere, and it's going to be better for the students if they have a digital portfolio, because for AP classes, which I didn't teach, but you know, it's good skills anyway. But if they're in an AP, especially a science class, they need their portfolio for the credit for the lab piece if they pass the AP test. The digital lab or the digital portfolio is definitely going to increase your 21st century skills in your classroom, because they're going to be doing more creation, more collaboration. They're going to be, you know, improving their writing, and it's going to help with their critical thinking as they solve problems. And I know a lot of this is very science focused, but that was my wheelhouse. That was where I spent my time in the classroom, was in a science classroom. So a lot of these techniques are going to be adaptable though. All right, so to get people started, you're going to have them create a Google Slide document, you know, basic template, make sure they got their name on the front. And then the students are going to share that document to your email. And I always had them give me comment only access, so I could see their portfolio and leave comments, but I couldn't edit it. And number 5 here, pretty important, do not use Google Classroom to turn it in, because Google Classroom has the ownership change. And so if they turn it into you, then you become the owner. And even when you return it, the ownership doesn't go back to the student in the same way. And we found it was very clunky, and the students were having to make a copy. And after about 2 times of turning in their portfolios, they were making a copy of, and it was getting very clunky. So we shifted gears and decided to have them just share it with me through Google Drive, and that worked a lot better. So have them make their portfolio and share it with you via email. And when that happens, it's going to be a little bit crazy. So you have to kind of make sure you're prepared in your class for this to happen, because you're going to have, you know, 30 plus people sharing a document with you at the same time. And so your inbox is going to explode. As long as you are ready for it in your Google Drive, I'm going to skip forward. As long as you're ready for it in your Google Drive is organized and ready to go, then it's pretty easy. You can just go into your Google Drive, into the shared with me folder, and start moving those documents into the right places, the right folders, as they get shared with you, so that you do not lose control when you get 180 plus portfolios shared with you all at the same time within across 2 days or whatever. So making sure that your Google Drive is set up when they start sharing documents with you is really important. So you're going to want to make sure you have folders. I always organized by class period, because that's what made sense in my brain, but you can do it however works for you. All right, and then sharing a template with a student. I found it was really helpful to make templates and share those instead of having the students type everything in. That takes forever if you have them do it that way. So I would make templates, and I would have them copy the slide and put it into there. So I would put the template into Google Classroom and have them make a copy of that document and that slide, and I would have them paste it into their own slide. And you'll notice on my template here at the bottom, I have this slide, and then off in the space beside the slide, so in Google Slides, I'm going to exit out of this for a minute. In Google Slides, you have what's called the gray space. And so this is my slide, and this over here is the gray space. And you can put stuff in the gray space and have it there for your students. I would always put like directions of what I want on that slide. I would put it in the gray space and leave it there. And so when they're building their portfolio, they can just kind of drag over or mouse over and see what they need to do. But I'm not taking up any real estate on their slides. You can also do, if you want to have them label pictures or something, or label any kind of process or anything, you could put like a word bank out there. You could do all kinds of stuff with it. The options are pretty much endless. But when you have them make a template, like when you make a template, and when you have them copy the slide, this box, this gray box is going to come with them, come with the box. But then when you go to present mode, it's not there anymore. So that was a trick that I found was really helpful for getting the students set up for their portfolios. Okay, so we talked a little bit about making sure that you are ready to have, you know, an entire class share a portfolio with you, and you can organize it into your Google Drive kind of as they go or as they come in. And then I found it was helpful to also have a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet to record the grades into. That way I could kind of split screen on my computer or on my iPad, and I could kind of grade the portfolios one after another and just put the grades into the spreadsheet, and then I would move them over into Skyward. And that just helped me kind of keep track of everything. And I also used comments to leave feedback to my students. And I'm gonna escape out of full screen again. Sorry, my poor MacBook is kind of slow. Okay, so let's say I want to leave some feedback about this picture here. So I would click on the thing I want to give feedback to or about, or I could even highlight a certain portion of the text. And this right here is the comment button. You can also get it there by right-clicking and say comment. And then I can leave the feedback that I want to leave about this portion. So, you know, please make sure you use your own words or whatever you want to say. Please correct, whatever. And then what you can do is use the plus button, and you can tag the student. And I always pick on Angie because she's my moderator today. But I can tag the student and assign it to them and say, hey, please make sure you take care of this. And I would know when they did, and I would need to, and they would be able to comment back, and I could say, okay, that looks a lot better. And I could make sure that they had learned it a little bit more authentically than just they put it out into space and they get a grade in Skyward and then they forget about it and move on forever. All right, so. All right. Okay, so we talked about getting started on your end, and let's talk about writing samples. Because I'm a scientist, when I did this a couple years ago in my classroom, I actually kept one class as a control, and so one class didn't get to do the lab portfolios and the other classes did, just so I could kind of compare back and forth when they were doing the same labs, what kind of quality I was seeing in the difference between. And so the two pictures on the left are pictures of the handwritten, obviously, and then you can see a difference in the quality of writing between the two. All right, and I found a rubric was really, really helpful to help grade stuff. It just helps keep you on track and make sure You're not, getting bias in there. So this is an example of the rubric that I used. If you're interested in a copy of this, I can try to get it to you, although I think it's actually saved on my H drive. I think it's one of the few things that I have over there on my H drive and not on my Google Drive. So I'm gonna have to wait until we have an opportunity to go back onto campus. Like I said, we have a blended classroom, so you have a lot of different device options out there for our students. I allowed the students to work on cell phones if they had no other option. Obviously, this was a couple years ago, and we were working in a more iPad environment. So it's kind of up to you, classroom management wise, how you want to approach it. Making it so a lot of my students that chose to work on cell phones initially ended up either bringing their own like laptop or computer or whatever, or tablet, or ended up getting one from the school, because it's really difficult to do a Google slide presentation on your cell phone. It's possible, but it's tricky. I found that styluses were very helpful to have those in my classroom when we were working on the iPads specifically. And I try to have as many charging places as possible. If you go to Harbor Freight or Big Lots, you can get surge protectors for pretty cheap. That's what I would do. I would just go and buy a couple of cheap ones and have them around my classroom wherever I needed them. And for the kids that had absolutely no device, I would have them upload or have them write everything down, and then we could find a time. I had an extra computer in my classroom, or I could send them up to the library or whatever, and have them put a picture of the paper into a Google Slide document. I had very few students that chose to do that option because it was so much work to write everything by hand. Nobody wanted to do it. So that was an incentive, I guess, to get them to bring a device. So I have a template for you, and this is from Ditch That Textbook. Awesome stuff on his website. So that's a really cool template to help you get started if you're interested, or you can make your own. I always made my own, but because I didn't know this was out there at the time. And I just elaborated a little bit more on how to copy those template slides in. So it kind of depends on whether you're on a laptop or a Chromebook or on an iPad. So I've got some different directions there on how to do that. Okay, and that's it. Man, they were a little back then. Okay, so what questions do you guys have for me?
Can you show us how to make the gray space in a slide? Because I never knew that. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite little tricks. All right, so let me go back to presenting. All right, you guys can see my presentation again?
Yes.
Okay, so to do the gray space, what I'm gonna do first is kind of zoom out a little bit. So I'm gonna go to like 50%. And so all of this all around the slide is my gray space. So I can put whatever I want out here. So I can put a shape and put it out here. And any shape that you put into a Google slide, if you just double click on it, it automatically becomes a text box. So you can just start typing. So, and then I can just start putting my directions in there.
That's awesome.
Please label the parts of the cell using the following words, or whatever you want to say. I have trouble typing. And then I can start putting in my, word bank, or you could even go to insert, and let's say I wanted them to label stuff So I could even put in some arrows and have them, you know, already put the words in there for them.
Cool.
Whatever, and have it, you know, label, and you can change the color and make it stand out. I can make the text nice and big. You can spend a lot of time formatting and getting it beautiful. And that way they will have the word bank here that they can use. Furthermore, I'm going to make a new slide here. Let's say I have like a picture in here that I want them to label, to put labels onto. What I can do, and I can insert a picture real quick from my drive. Let's say I want them to label stuff on here. What I can do, I can take this slide and I can download it as a PNG, just the one slide as a PNG. And that's going to take a second. But then what I can do is I can set the background of any slide as the slide that I had just downloaded. So here's my blank slide. I'm going to say, so I'm going to take this slide and I'm going to set the background of it. Got to remember where the background button is. Sorry, sometimes I gotta, you know, I gotta click around on all the buttons.
I always forget where the background one is also.
Yeah. I think it's here. All right, so I right clicked and found it. Okay, so then I can say change background. And I'm gonna select choose image. And I can upload from my computer or I can just drag this here. Should work. There we go. And say done. And so now, I gotta get rid of that text box. Okay, so now it doesn't matter how much I click on this, I can't move anything that's on the slide. This is the background of the slide now, and so now I can use the gray space and put in my things to label and say, you know, label the iPad or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But now they can't change where anything is on this picture. And so they can only move the stuff that's in the gray space that I put there for them. So it's almost like you could make a card sort, like a digital card sort in your Google Slides pretty easily. Okay. What's your question, Tracy?
So I do an interactive notebook every year. And so I guess my big question is getting this started at the beginning of the year. Will you have a part 2 for us? Because I know I'll have way more questions after I actually start working with it.
Absolutely. So you want me to readdress this at the beginning of the year, like in August?
No, not necessarily this part, but like once I start, like you said, card sort, I may come back and say, hey, will you show me how you would do a card sort, or how you would, like, I'm just looking at the picture you put thinking, okay, I could put a parabola in there, make that my background, have them come in, label all of that. And anyway, so yeah, if you would follow up with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can definitely do that. That's a great thought. Yeah, I think in a math class, there's so many things you could do with this. I mean, really, in any class, there's so many things you could do with it. What other questions do you guys have regarding portfolios?
I have a question. I use the sites from Google where they create their own portfolio through that way because I noticed that some of the colleges were having their kids use that for turning in work. How
Absolutely.
does this Google Slides compare to that as far as college use? Like, if we teach them this now, is that something that they're going to use later? Because I teach mainly seniors.
Got it. It really just depends on what works best for your class. You could definitely use Google Sites, and for a senior about to go to college, a Google site might be better because it's a little bit more robust. The one reason that I advocate for Google Slides is it's a little bit more agile. I guess you can use it across more platforms. With Google Sites, you can only use it on a computer, laptop, or Chromebook. Whereas Google Slides, you can also do it on mobile devices. Both are really good. And, like I was talking about with the gray space in your Google Slides, because you can embed a slide onto a site. So you could still do all of those techniques and put them into your Google Sites. So it really just depends on what's going to work best for your class and your students and what you think. I just wanted to show you guys another tool out there, I guess.
Yeah. I was just curious because I know they can reach it on their phones. It's just a little bit different as far as, filtering down to the chapter or topic that you're wanting them, because you can put your topics in there and then you just go through it. But I didn't know if this was something that maybe the colleges are starting to use more now instead of the other.
Harley.
That's why I started the other one a couple of years ago.
Got it. Since my teaching experience is really focused around science, I really only know what is working or what is expected of like an AP Science student.
Right.
And I know for that case, I don't think it really matters what form their portfolio is in, as long as they have documentation of that learning.
Okay.
I think you'd probably have to look kind of at the colleges themselves and see, because I don't think I have a specific, I haven't seen any colleges say specifically what they prefer.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it's a good question, and I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you. All right. Did you guys have any other questions for me? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Let's go ahead and stop the recording.